provisional voter turnout of 67.3%, 96 seats across the country voted on Monday in the fourth phase of the Lok Sabha elections. Now, lower polling numbers have been a cause of concern to political parties who have been forced to think as to whose voters are not showing up in booths. But the turnout gap seems to have narrowed as compared to the earlier phases, even as polling remains lower than in 2019. So how do we read the latest numbers? Remember, the final numbers will come later. That is what we will do in this episode of Poll Science. We have with us data expert and political analyst, Mr. Amitabh Tiwari. Thank you, Mr. Tiwari, for speaking to NDTV. So according to the ECI numbers that were released last night, the provisional voter turnout stands at 67.25%. Now, this could rise once the final numbers are tallied. In 2019, the turnout in the seats that voted in earlier phases, the drop was around 4%, then of course 3.8%, 0.2%, and now it stands at 1.3% in the fourth phase. So can we finally say that the voter turnout is not as low as it seemed initially?
No, I mean the voter turnout was low in phase 1 and 2, but of course in phase 3 and 4, the voter turnout is not that low. The numbers are almost identical, similar to what was recorded in 2019. This could be also because the temperature has been fairly good in some of the areas thanks to the change in climate, and also the Hindu wedding season is over. So because of that also we could have seen a higher participation. Of course, the effort of the Election Commission and the political parties and leaders, including the Prime Minister, who have been advocating or exhorting people to come out to vote in larger numbers. So these all things have contributed to an increase in turnout, and phase 4 has recorded the highest turnout in this election amongst all the 4 phases.
Right. Mr. Tiwari, let's look at some specifics here. In Andhra Pradesh, there is a 1.55% dip as compared to the last general election. Andhra Pradesh also saw polling of almost 80% in 2019 and 76% in 2014. One would assume that this is a state where voters are keen to vote. But this time, when there is actually an interesting contest between the TDP, BJP and JSP combined, opposed to the YSRCP, that won 22 of the 25 seats, the turnout seems to have gone down. So what do you think could have been the reasons for this? Also because the assembly polls were also held yesterday.
See, whenever a state records a turnout of around 80%, and this is a big state, not the northeastern state, the base is fairly high. So to have an increase of turnout on an increased base of new voters is fairly difficult. And the gap also, as you are saying or showing, is not huge. It's like 1.5%, 1.6%, which could actually even go up when we get to know the final number. So it's almost similar to last time or just a marginal drop. So we cannot make significant inference from this. It could be due to some minor factors and largely the base effect or the base factor.
Right. What about Telangana, sir? Because here the voting percentage stands at 64.7% as compared to the 62.8% in 2019. Now that I would say is significant, and this is a state where the BJP is expecting gains from the 4 seats that it won in 2019, but also the Congress is hoping to keep up with its winning streak of 2023 assembly polls. How do you see this rise in numbers?
Yeah, so these numbers are also in line with the trend, you can say. I mean, there has been a fall in polling percentage of around 1.5–2% on an overall level, and this is in line with that. Now in Telangana, if you see 40%, 30%, 20% was the vote share of Congress, BRS and the BJP, or rather the BRS, Congress and the BJP. BJP scored almost 3 times the vote share in 2019 of its assembly vote share. So this time, since BJP has got around 14% vote share, it hopes to significantly improve its vote share. However, most of the votes which BJP got in 2019 are concentrated around 4 seats where it won. Almost half of the votes it has got there. BJP has also not been able to crack the OBC code here, because nationally, if you see, the BJP is the #1 party of choice for OBCs, but here because they removed Sanjay Gandhi as the president of the state unit, there is some discontent or disillusionment amongst a section of the OBCs. Now BJP hopes that since it's a national election and the BRS is weakening because of exodus of leaders, we could see a bipolar contest here between the Congress and the BJP. And wherever there is a bipolar contest between Congress and BJP, BJP has a better strike rate at a national level. Whereas Congress also has pinned all its hopes on Telangana, because they've recently formed the government. They have also implemented some of the guarantees which they had promised. And this 3-month, 4-month period is also honeymoon period, because even if they have not fulfilled some of the promises, voters do give weightage to the fact that they have just come in and they still have time to implement the guarantees. So we have to see how much BRS weakens from here. And BRS today has a section of traditional SC/ST minority votes of the Congress party, as well as a section of an anti-Congress vote. So these could split towards the Congress and towards the BJP, the anti-Congress vote, and thus make the contest interesting.
The state of BRS is going to be an important decider in this. Another data point that has emerged from yesterday's data is that all major urban centers seem to be seeing a relatively low turnout, and the voter turnout, let me tell my viewers, was 39.2 in Hyderabad, 51.3% in Pune, one of the lowest in Maharashtra, and of course you also have 60.3% in Indore, which where the Congress has been campaigning for Nota. So urban apathy in some ways is reinforced. What do we how can we look forward to the May 20th elections, which will see, Mumbai elections taking place, and also 25th of May, where Delhi will vote?
See, phase 4 was also on a weekday, but it coincided with the weekend, and we have phase 5 also on a Monday. So this acts as an incentive to the urban voter to flee off to some nearby location and take advantage of the holiday. See, what happens is that in all our urban areas also, there is 50% almost people living in slums and 50% in villas or gated societies. The 50% people who are living in slums are actually dependent upon the state governments or the central governments, because they are beneficiaries in one or the other schemes. So there you see good amount of enthusiasm amongst the voters. However, this 50% balance, middle class, let's say, or urban or educated people who are well off, are not that dependent upon the government. So they are not beneficiaries of any schemes. We do not have any social security benefits. Then they are not part of any Ayushman scheme or whatever. So a section of the people do feel that their life is not dependent upon the government. So and because many political parties have also not carried out an active outreach amongst the voters, because we are not part of any governance, or we are not being consulted for any policy changes, etc. Correct? So what happens is there is also a disconnect. There is no outreach for this section of voters. They are taken for granted, and all of this has led to voter apathy and perhaps a decline in turnout.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Tiwari, for those insights. So there's been a dip in phase 4 polling, but of course the gap is closing, and these final turnout numbers will also give us more accurate picture, and these numbers could be out end of this week is what we've been told. But most importantly, Srinagar Lok Sabha constituency in Jammu and Kashmir on Monday also registered probably its highest voter turnout for a national election in the last 30 years as people queued up in the valley to vote for the first time since the abrogation of Article 370. Now that is one exceptional feature of phase 4 elections. Thank you for watching Pole Science.